Hey, what's up everybody? This is Dumpster Cat, back with some mono black 8 field in Pioneer. I have been loving this deck so much recently. I've been having a lot of pretty nice success. Just clarification, this video is going to be in replay format as opposed to live action gameplay. Just want to try out something new. I think it'll make the video a lot shorter, which could be better for YouTube algorithm, but maybe at the cost of some immersion for you guys. I think I could have some more insightful commentary with the replays, just because of course I've already played throughout these matches and have kind of thought through some things that I would want to say post the match. So let me know if you prefer the replay format or the live action gameplay. I think either one is probably fine. I think in terms of just how much time it takes for me to make a video, I think it's roughly equal. Maybe because without commentating, I do play the matches a bit quicker. But of course, with the replays, I do have to, go back and do the commentary, which of course, I don't mind either way. Just let me know what you guys think. Of course, with the 8 field black deck, the main deck is the same. I did make some changes post board. This sideboard is actually not the one we have in this video, but I did want to kind of showcase this off the bat, just because I think this is the better sideboard. But I'll touch on that later. But yeah, 8 field effects in Pioneer has been pretty nice for me. I will say, triggering Revolt is great. Filling the graveyard for our 4 Cling to Dusts is really great, of course. And then, of course, taking off the opponent's the 3+ colored decks is really nice. Hitting the utility lands, of course, is really nice. And quite often, honestly, a lot of decks in Pioneer don't, a lot of 2-color decks that is in Pioneer, don't run both basic land types. So we could often, color screw 2-color decks, which is pretty cool, I do have to say. And having the 8 field effects makes that pretty viable and pretty relevant. And it comes up, quite frequently, which is pretty cool. I just really love the attrition style kind of mid-rangey strategy this deck has going for it. One thing I did want to touch on is just the philosophy or thinking behind having full 4 playsets of each card in the main deck, which is, as a traditional, mid-range player, it's something that I'm like, oh, is that really correct? We could kind of trim around the edges with Cling to Dust. Maybe you don't need full 4 Liliana of the Veil. But I think, in a deck like this, to me at least, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that in Magic in general, we should be definitely doing new things all the time. I guess in life in general as well, just doing new things all the time to kind of expand our horizons, expand our thinking, expand our theory crafting. And so I think, playing a deck like this, for me, myself as a mid-range player, where having, theory crafting behind the exact perfect number of removal spells we want to be having, or perfect number of creatures we want to be having, splits of certain cards, is really fun and really interesting to me. But sometimes it can be even more effective to think of new, untraditional, or I guess unorthodox strategies like this. And of course, this is all taking inspiration from M. Hayashi, so all credit to them for kind of, I guess, making this a bit prominent in Magic. I think I like having the 4 Sheoldred. Of course, if you guys are familiar with my Golgari content, I do like having the 4 copies of a card like this, just because it is so impactful. And does get removed quite a bit, of course, so don't mind having the full 4 copies. Liliana is one that I usually wouldn't have the full 4 copies of in a mid-range deck, but I think in this one it makes a lot of sense, just because we don't mind discarding the extra copies. It is a very, very versatile card that I think in a mono black deck we really like having access to. I could see obviously playing, I know Rakdos decks, play 1 or 2 in the main deck, and then some in the sideboard, or just none at all. And in Golgari, I usually like having 1 or 2 as well in the main deck, and then maybe 1 in the sideboard. But I think in this mono black deck, we really don't mind having full 4 copies. Just discarding extra copies of herself is obviously a line of what we've been seeing across all formats for the longest time. And I think most importantly, discarding extra copies of the playsets of, all the other cards we have in this deck is kind of another aspect of what makes this deck tick. I think discarding extra copies of Cling to Dust is obviously really nice. Thoughtseize or Fatal Pushes in matchups where they're kind of not relevant is really nice. Obviously discarding extra lands when we're flooding out, things like that. We know all these types of things, all these interactions, but I think, and especially in this playset style and Hayashi inspired deck, we really don't mind having the full 4 copies of Liliana. I think Liliana is extremely important in a style of deck like this. Another card I wanted to touch on is Sheoldred's Edict. This card has overperformed for me. Obviously we can be playing Power Word Kill over a card like this. I think just hitting Planeswalkers is so important. We're not playing Murderous Rider. I think Trespasser is better than that card, but we're not playing Murderous Rider, so we don't have access to hitting Planeswalkers in that sense, which I think is extremely important against mono green and blue-white control. And then otherwise, this is just like oddly a really unconditional Edict effect, which Edict effects are usually extremely conditional and really not versatile, but this one is just extremely versatile, extremely unconditional. I guess surprisingly so, right? Obviously, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but I think in most cases, this card is just really overperformed for me, so I really don't mind having access to it. Of course, having access to the 8 1-mana interactive spells for creatures is really important against this aggro-heavy meta, and just love having this against mono green, of course. Then in terms of having the full 4 Castle and full 4 Hive, I really don't mind having the full playsets of these cards, just because in terms of Castle Locthwain, sometimes we just really need the extra card advantage, or really need the extra threat with the Hive, and just having like the just straight up inevitability of finding a card like this in a monocolor deck that would otherwise not have too much card advantage, right? With mono black, we really don't see too much card advantage. So I think having the full 4 Castle, 4/4 Cling to Dust is really important for a black deck like this. And of course with the Hives, having the extra threat is nice. But yeah, other than that, hopefully you guys enjoy. So in terms of the sideboard, I was going to mention I'm not playing the Kalidas and the 3rd Pithing Needle for this league, or 2nd Pithing Needle for this league. I instead am going for the full 4 Invoke and the 2 Ritual of Soots. Which isn't like much of a change from last league. I just cut the 3rd Ritual of Soot for the 4th Path of Peril. I think, however, after like seeing some comments on last video, username Vardarus in the comment section of last video mentioned having Kalidas in the sideboard could be really effective against Pioneer as a nice road blocker for some of their threats, and then some nice value later on. Lifelink is obviously very important, and then having access to like 2 more Sheoldreds in a way, just two more like really impactful threats should be pretty nice against their Change the Rocks deck. Of course, this card is really good against midrange as well, and then kind of sweeps against any other aggressive deck, which is really nice. I've always wanted to have the 2nd Pithing Needle in this deck. This is great against mono green, of course, blue at control, Lotus Field. As we'll see in this league, we don't necessarily need the 2nd Pithing Needle against Lotus Field, just because we do have like the 8 discard spells post board plus Liliana, which is a lot for them. But this card is just extremely versatile. I think in a mono black deck, we especially like having a card like this, just because it can turn off a lot of cards we can't typically interact with. Greasefang comes to mind in terms of turning off using Pithing Needle to turn off Parhelion and any of their other vehicles is of course especially nice. And then also like cutting the Ritual of Soots. Like Ritual of Soot was really good against red-green vehicles, which I kind of wanted to have some game against, and of course the mono-white humans deck. I think obviously Kalidas is great against mono white, so it kind of fills that role, and then Pithing Needle fills the red-green vehicles role nicely as well. And then these cards are just like obviously really good against other matchups, so I think in terms of like sideboard choices, I think this is correct. But with that being said, I know that was kind of long-winded and perhaps a bit rambly, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that deck tech. Hopefully you enjoyed the matches. Again, they will be in replay format, so let me know what you think about that. Thank you to all the support on the channel recently. We've been getting a lot of new subscribers, so if you're new, please, thank you so much, and please stick around. Other than that, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video helps just, tremendously with really pushing the content out there. And yeah, leave a comment if you're interested in, sharing your ideas or, whatnot, if you have a question. And yeah, with that being said, let's get into the matches. Thank you so much. Okay, so match number 1, we are on the play. We have to mulligan a null-lander, or sorry, an all-lander, but we're on the play. We see Spikefield Cave, have a pretty decent hand, some removal spells. Trespassers, of course, really great. Drawing Liliana is nice. I think I like leading on Trespasser just in the blind, though. We see Volcanic Spite, which mainly means creativity, and then with the Prismari command, we know that we are probably up against Gearhulk creativity. Obviously drawing Thoughtseize here on our turn 4. We do see the Gearhulk, which we take. Otherwise, they don't have the best hand. I think, I don't think that other creativity decks play Prismari command, so I think that if we do see this does mean Gearhulk. But of course, pretty easy take of Gearhulk and then Liliana Edict. So they discard the mountain and a hazard that they drew for turn and just pass after playing Mirex. We plus discarding the Thirst. Usually in scenarios like this, I do like having access to instant speed removal, so I don't mind just discarding the Thirst there. Opponent discarded a Prismari command. They will make a token end of turn here. Then I think I kind of make a bit of a mistake here. Like, we could have Demolition Fielded on end step there so that they can't make an extra token, but having 2 push in hand, I kind of wanted to wait till their turn so that we could have Revolt for this Reflection. It's kind of a trade-off. We can, of course, just wait to draw another removal spell for the Reflection. I think it's probably correct doing what we did, but of course I could see it either way. But they just are able to get like a lot of value here with the Mirex making 2 tokens now. This is actually like surprisingly a pretty problematic card for us. Just because it is really, good at making tokens, which is pretty difficult for us to deal with. As, in Midrange deck, we don't really want to be using our removal spells on, puny little creatures like this. But we make that play, push the Reflection. Plus, unfortunately though, they are able to just activate Den and kill our Liliana. We draw a really impactful one, probably our best draw in the form of Sheoldred, which is really nice. Upkeep though, they have a Divide by Zero, getting Environmental Sciences into an island, which is not ideal of course. We Thoughtseize away a Fiery Impulse. Replay the Sheoldred. They attack. I think they actually like skipped through their attack phase accidentally, which made me think if they're gonna activate Den and attack with all, or attack with the Den, they probably have a Spite or I guess it would have to be a Fiery Impulse with 1 mana open. So I Thoughtseize here. Thoughtseize was actually kind of decent draw in that scenario. And we do see the Volcanic Spite. So I guess they didn't have enough mana to do that. So maybe they activated and then realized they didn't have enough mana. Either way, they just draw into the second Divide by Zero, which is really bad, into Teachings of the Archaics, which is basically just a divination for them. We're able to, replay the Sheoldred and not be in too bad of shape, but this Den is really causing a problem for us. And we unfortunately don't have enough mana to go Edict as well. They attacked there with all the creatures. I opted to, maybe this was playing a bit too scared, but I opted to just block a token, just because I felt like they had another, of course, Volcanic Spite or Fiery Impulse. Could have just like blocked the Den there, which could have been decent enough, but I think having the Edict in hand, we don't mind just taking the damage there, and then of course if they activate Den, of course, again next turn, then we just have the Edict to get rid of it. Or in this case, we just draw Demolition Field, which is really nice. So we play that. I could have attacked here, perhaps should have. Either way, they just find the third Divide by Zero, which is, of course, really, really good for them. with getting Mascot Exhibition, which is oftentimes just like an incredible card against us. We take 2 here, as we are able to Demolition Field it then, replay Sheoldred, and then here I do leave up the Edict for the Hall of Storm Giants. But they just drew a Magma Opus, so they had that and Exhibition, which like are 2 really good cards in the matchup. We are dead here because we go down to 1. We can Edict away 1 token, but they just have the 1/1 for to finish us off, and we go to game 2. Okay, game number 2 against Gearhulk Creativity. We're on the play with a decent hand. Lots of removal. We like seeing Liliana in this matchup. Oh, sorry. In terms of sideboarding, we just pretty much bring in the full 4 Duress for the shadows. I don't like having shadow too much, especially in their, Fiery Impulse, Volcanic Spite deck. So I think it's most often just a really dead card, and I don't want to be having to play it like on turn 3 or 4 and leaving up mana to pump it. So I just cut it all together, bringing in the full 4 Duress as they are a combo deck. I do lead on Trespasser here over Liliana. I think I like saving Lily for a Fable here, just Edict it away, leaving up Push, which does happen, which is good for us. Opponent discards, change the equation in Fiery Impulse, getting the Spell Mastery for the second Fiery Impulse, which is pretty decent for them. Seeing second Fable is fine because we do have Push, but of course Fable is pretty problematic for us. We plus away extra Liliana. I think we want to be making our land drops, and we can just go Trespasser plus Edict here, taking away that Magma Opus, which is actually extremely important. They do some filtering, and just pass turn, we Edict away that Reflection. We draw Thirst for turn, which was like, I would have preferred Fatal Push over it for the Mirrex token. I opt to activate Castle here, and then seeing Sheoldred, we're just going to go immediate plus away this Thirst, which I think is pretty decent. And we see it change the equation, which definitely feels good for, discarding the Thirst there, seeing that. They make a token, which is pretty good, but of course we're kind of like in the driver's seat here. They do have Divide by Zero for Liliana into Teachings, which is pretty decent for them. Here, drawing the land for turn is nice. Unfortunately, we don't have 7 mana to go, double spell here. I think it's still correct to just go Sheoldred though, just because it is, they're at 10 life. We want to be dealing damage to them. They find a Gearhulk, but fortunately it's only for Fiery Impulse, which is great for us. Now, here we Thoughtseize away an extra Gearhulk in hand, which is pretty good for us. And then here we do end up attacking. I kind of like this line, could be not correct, but we have a pretty easy trade. Like, I didn't want them getting extra value off the Gearhulk in the future, so I think making this trade now is nice. And of course, we can go Liliana Edict here. Liliana plus. I feel like I probably should have Edicted, but I suppose they only have 3 power in play, so I think that's probably fine. They drew a Volcanic Spite, which is really bad for us, of course, though. But we did draw a Trespasser yet again. We're able to take a Gearhulk, which is really nice. They make a token. They divide by 0 their own Fable, which is a pretty cool play. We draw land, so we just activate Hive, take out the divide by 0 for Gearhulk, and then take out the Gearhulk itself for Trespasser value. Then they're at 3, so we're like feeling pretty good. We have 2 lethal attackers, plus the Trespasser can get the Sheoldred out of the graveyard and Trespasser to deal an extra 2. So we're feeling pretty good. It seems like they didn't draw anything for this game number 2, and we'll see you guys for the next one. Okay, match 3 did not make any changes post side. We do have a pretty nice hand. Duress is really good, of course. We see a actually like not the best hand. They have removal, We don't have any creatures. They have Gearhulk, which is obviously going to be a problem down the line, but at least now we can kind of say, okay, don't really care about it too much. So we do just take this creativity. Cling to Dust to try to draw into an extra discard, but we didn't get there, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay. They do have a Magma Opus. And I think, yeah, on draw step, I do try to see how many basic lanes they have, which is pretty important to do in this deck because we do have the A field effects. I think they ended up having 1 mountain, 1 island. So we do this again for the same purpose, and we do see the island. So, you know, trying to get them off of that Gearhulk, but unfortunately they did have like just enough basic lanes to get there, and they do have an upkeep Magma Opus, which is pretty good for them. We just, you know, have to Trespasser. We could have like held up push, but or just played push, which is fine, but I think kind of not really proactive enough. Maybe seeing Volcanic Spite, we're not supposed to make that play though. And they do just have another Gearhulk off that creativity draw, which was pretty good for them, and I do just concede because they do have the second Magma Opus. So they put us down to 3, and then we're pretty much just dead on board. In fact, yes, we are dead on board because we thirst 1, and then we're dead to the other one. So it's okay. I think this matchup is pretty tough. I think having 4 Cling to Dust helps out a lot. But otherwise, I think our overall strategy is to just use our discard spells and then try to find Liliana to stabilize the game, and then use like the Trespassers and the Hives and the Sheoldreds to kind of get there. We saw game 2 that Sheoldred plus Trespasser was pretty difficult for them to deal with. I think Sheoldred is extremely difficult for them to deal with. Like game 1, they had to use, what, 3 divided by zeros to get rid of her, or at least get there in the end. So I think we really want to be drawing 8 discard spells, Liliana, Sheoldred in this matchup. Cling to Dust is nice, of course, like I said, getting the you know, Magma Opuses out of the graveyard or whatever they target with Gearhulk is pretty nice. But otherwise, I want to be drawing those cards. Yeah, so we lose this one, but I don't mind too much because it was pretty close. And yeah, see you guys for the next one. Okay, match 2. We are on the draw with a pretty decent hand. We are up against Sacrifice, so I love having these shadows in the opening hand. Honestly, drawing this third one, I kind of don't mind. We take this damage, because I feel like they have a Harvester, which they do. So we push that. And then I just go for the turn 2 Shadow, because they don't play Bone Crusher Giant, so I don't have to play around Stomp. Which is, of course, really nice. They have a push, which like we're completely fine with, and they don't hit their land drop. So really feeling pretty good here. Oops, these. So we drew a Thoughtseize, so we're obviously going to be double spelling this turn. We see a hand of Deadly Dispute, and then 2 3-drops. So with them having only 2 lands, I'm just going to be taking the Dispute. But, of course, they do just draw that 3rd land, and they go with a Fable. So it's pretty unfortunate, but of course, at least we do have the Shadow to negate the Cauldron cat combo. So we Cling to Dust into a Trespasser, which is, of course, another one that's really good in this matchup. They don't discard anything, which is not too scary because we kind of know their hand already. They make this attack, which I found to be a little strange, but with Mayhem Devil, they are actually able to kind of clear a board here at the cost of being empty-handed. So it's like kind of fine, but we're kind of in a strange predicament here where they have Devil and Fable, which is going to be really good later on. And at least we're able to like use our Cling to Dust to get rid of that cat. But, you know, like I just mentioned, Fable plus Devil is just really, really good. So we want to be finding an answer somehow here. They just passed, though, which is a good sign for us. Draw another Shadow. So I think I like attacking here, being extremely aggressive. And then putting down Shadow, then leaving up mana to prepare for this. I do not block because I know with Reflection plus Devil, they're able to get a lot of sack triggers, plus this Deadly Dispute, which they drew, makes it a lot more difficult. So we're able to have some game here against these Devil triggers by pumping our Shadows. In fact, I think they kind of mess up there because we did just have the straight up pump. Fortunately though, we did draw a removal spell, so we just immediately get that devil out of the way. I think we do want to do that instead of the reflection, despite them being able to draw like a harvester, which would be pretty good. But yeah, this is fine for now. We just really needed to get that devil out of the way. They just draw an oven, which is great. They don't put Jocantha into hand. I think they just forgot to do that, if I remember correctly. And then here I'm just going to be pumping up once to leave up mana for Cling to Dust in the graveyard. And they had to push anyway, so that's fine. I guess that's what they were holding up, right? They Thoughtseize away Cling to Dust, which is a great sign for us, of course. Definitely don't mind them doing that. They're at 6, so we're, you know, pretty good. These shadows have been extremely good for us. We're able to escape our Cling to Dust, drawing a land, and then draw Sheoldred, which is really good. So we attack here, we pump once, I believe, and then we just go play Sheoldred and play tap land, and feeling pretty good. They have to have like a combination of cards to really come back from this. And they just concede on draw step, so we'll have to see it. Okay, game number 2 against Sacrifice. I take out all of the Lilianas. I think this card is pretty poor in this matchup, bringing in the two Ritual of Soots and 2 Invoke Despair. I think, you know, Invoke Despair is another one that's pretty bad against their cats and their unlucky witnesses. But other than that, I think it's kind of like a necessary evil just because Fable and Devil are so problematic for us. So I brought in 2, was kind of experimental. I think we definitely want full 4 Liliana out. So it's kind of like, okay, Invoke Despair is kind of like the next best thing we could bring in. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure we'll see the power of that card in this matchup. We have a really nice hand. Opponent goes Den, then we're able to play Thoughtseize, and we see a pretty impactful hand despite being a little slow. They are on the play, but we do just take this Fable here, leaving them with 2 Devils. And of course with this Ritual set we see in hand, we could kind of set them up to, you know, not to, can kind of set them up to really, you know, play well with this Ritual set here. So we just pass. They attack here. We don't Edict because we want the 2-for-1, of course. And they play right into it, which we love to see. I do Field, which maybe is not the best against the 2 Devils. We take 2 damage, but that's fine. And we just Ritual set here, which is really good for us, of course. I think in terms of the basic land count, I think they only play 1 Swamp and potentially a Mountain. I think we'll see here. We draw Invoke Despair, which is like so good. But with the Hive up, I kind of want to leave my field effects open, and just the Edict effect is really good as well. Of course, they have Unlicensed Hearse, which like I don't think that's the best card against us, but I guess it's like decent enough to bring in. And then here we'll make a pretty cool play where we can field the Blood Crypt first, try to take them off red, and just see their basic land count. We do see Mountain though. They do a K command, which is like in fact extremely good for us because we do have the Cling to Dust in hand. My initial thinking was to go field Blood Crypt, field Hive. We have 1 mana open, then we can Cling to Dust. With this though, we could get additional value off the Cling to Dust. I wanted to draw a card, but obviously we're just gonna exile this Mayhem Devil, so it works out fine for us. And we do get rid of the Hive, and we know they just play 2 basic lands because they failed to find there. So of course, you know, keeping track of these basic land counts is really important in this deck. We just have like such a beefy hand. We could go Invoke or play Sheoldred. I think with them having no blood tokens or treasure tokens, I'm just going to play this Sheoldred and not really be too worried about them being able to remove it with a Fatal Push. And just kind of want more value off this Invoke Despair. They just have nothing, don't even put Jocantha in hand, so I'm just going to swing in here and then just play Invoke Despair and draw 3 cards and deal them 6, and really, you know, put them on the in the pressure here. And we even drew land plus push to leave up, which is pretty sweet. They pass again, so I think we're getting pretty lucky. Not entirely sure what they had in hand. I guess we'll see here. Alright, they had Sokenzin, so here I just put push plus Edict, which was, we kind of had like the perfect stuff for them. And then we Edict on the non-token here. We could have Edicted the second creature token, but with them doing this, we just go for the non-token, which is pretty sweet, pretty cool interaction. Obviously, Edict getting some nice flexibility here. I think Sacrifice is a bit difficult for us. I think having the Cletus post-board, again, after this league, I made that change, is really helpful for us. Invoke Despair is like fine. Here it was extremely good. I think it's just kind of decent in this matchup though, with them of course having so many things that they just want to be sacrificing. But we get there in the end, which is really nice, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Okay, match number 3. We are on the draw. We had to mulligan that one lander first. We had like Cling to Dust, I believe, plus we had Cling to Dust plus no discard spell, so I opted to mulligan. I think we could keep a lot of one-landers that have Thoughtseize plus Cling to Dust, or Duress post-board plus Cling to Dust, just because we could cling our own discard spell on turn 2, but not having access to that, I think we have to mulligan that hand, and we have a pretty decent 6 here, especially seeing that we are against Lotus Field. Thoughtseize plus Liliana is really good. So we see that they kept a pretty not good hand. It was extremely reliant on Sylvan Scrying, with them not having any blue mana. So we take that, obviously. They play their Beseiju, don't play out Grazer, don't have anything to do on turn 2. Yeah, unfortunately, I forgot about this. Unfortunately, they just like natty draw the Lotus Field that they were going to scry for anyways. So we kind of get punished a bit here. Feels pretty bad. And they play Grazer out for another Beseiju. We push it, which is fine. And we just immediately go Liliana plus away our Shadow. Oh, sorry, we plus away Trespasser because Shadow has a better clock in this matchup. They discarded their Balaged. They go Vizier here into Pour, which is really, really bad for us. They found Stage, which is even more bad. Plus, I believe... Oh, they didn't have Hidden Strings. Okay. So we're able to at least get Shadow on the board. They discard Odoar, so they have 1 card in hand plus the Dark Petition. They immediately go Dark Petition for Hidden Strings. And then... or I think they probably had... Yeah, they probably had Hidden Strings in hand and they Dark Petition for Leer. And then here they're able to combo off pretty effectively. Couldn't really do much about this. Like the turn we played Shadow, I believe was the turn they were able to copy with Stage and we were out of the field mana, or we tapped out of field. So that was kind of problematic for us, or unfortunate for us. Couldn't do anything about it though. They were able to combo off pretty nicely despite us having Thoughtseize into Liliana, which is usually enough. I think they got fairly lucky, I'd have to say, with us discarding the Scrying, and then they just drew the Lotus Field anyways. Pretty unfortunate, but it's okay. They have Behold the Beyond. With the stack they got Omniscience, Dark Petition, Behold the Beyond. I can't really do much about it. We can just like... I think I like in these scenarios giving them Omniscience because they just had 1 card in hand, but it really does nothing because they could just get Behold Beyond again off the Dark Petition. So anyway we do it, we get pretty, we're not in a good shape, and then they go for the Chandra plan. I wanted to see what combo they went for. It seems like all the Lotus Field players are on this combo. I'm not entirely sure if they have the Acquisition plus Approach combo still. I'm sure they probably do have access to it, but I haven't seen anybody go for that combo in quite some time since they had this new innovation with this new Chandra. So it's pretty interesting. This card is like, knowing that they're on this combo more so makes Graveyard hate so good against them. So like Leyline of the Void, Unlicensed Hearse is really good. Cling to Dust is really good against them, which is really good to hear, or really good to know about. And then Pithing Needle is great against them as well. But yeah, so a bit of an unfortunate game 1, but that's okay. We of course have a really nice post board plan against them. Okay, so game 2 against Lotus Field, I brought in the full 4 Duress and Pithing Needle, and then took out some removal spells. I like having Thirst over Push because it can hit Leer, but broadly speaking, the removal is pretty bad. We have a nice hand though. We could go Thoughtseize here. Seeing a pretty good hand, I take the Grazer, just because I was worried about them being able to have a really fast start. Looking back on it though, I think we were just supposed to take Hidden Strings, and then Duress the Ultimatum. But I do go for that line of taking Grazer plus Ultimatum here. I'm able to play Shadow turn 2 because we know they're going to play Shimmer on their turn 2. We attack in for 4, which is pretty nice after that Duress. But we saw that they drew into some pretty good ones. They drew Pour, I believe, Vizier, and then Lotus Field. Or maybe, no, sorry, they drew Pour, Balagid, and Vizier, which are really good ones. We'd still take the Emergent Ultimatum just because they do have, you know, the plethora of untappers, so we take the payoff. Unfortunately, though, they are able to go Lotus Field into Vizier, cycle, and then they hardcast a Vizier. So with we drew an extra Duress, which is really good for us. However, like, they still have a really good hand. They drew into a Chandra, which is really good. I take the Balagid just because they can you know, get back whatever we take with the Balagid, so we kind of are forced into taking that, unfortunately. Like, lucky thing for us though, they only have the 1 Lotus Field and, you know, 3 uncastable spells pretty much, despite them able to, they could get 4 mana off this Hidden Strings, but they still can't cast their payoffs. So we're feeling mostly fine. Unfortunately, unfortunately though, they do draw into land, so they can go Chandra here, kill our Shadow. However though, we do just have Edict, so not feeling too terribly. They don't draw land. We drew Liliana, which was really nice. However, I do go for the Trespasser, just because I kind of really wanted to have the Trespasser plus Liliana. Maybe it was a bit greedy, but I wanted both of them, and I knew that they didn't have just the Pour over pages in hand. If they had just had Pour, then I would have gotten Liliana extremely easily and then just get that out of hand. But we see they drew Hidden Strings. We're able to do that here now though. Plus away a Lotus Field that they drew. Exile some instants and sorceries. They go Pour here into Sylvan Scrying for a Lotus Field, and then that's basically their Thespian stage, and they pass back. We draw with Castle, see a Duress, which is really nice, and we see they have double Pour of the pages, so we take one with Duress, then plus away the next one with Liliana. They drew an Ultimatum for turn, so we plus that away, and then we had actually exactly lethal because they were at 6, and then they had I think like a Vizier, and then we had a Sheoldred, right? Or sorry, the Shadow that we are able to exile, drain them for 2, and then attack them for 4, down to 0. So game 3 on the draw against Lotus Field always is a bit difficult. We do have our 8 discard spells though first, which is very nice. We had that hand. It was like Pithing Needle, Sheoldred, another card. Like, Pithing Needle is really good, naming stage or Chandra, but I feel like that hand was just a bit too slow. So I mulliganed it. I thought a lot about it, just because it could have been pretty good, just because Sheoldred plus Pithing Needle is of course really nice, but I felt like being on the draw, turn 4 Sheoldred was just not going to get there. We mulligan into this hand, which we cannot keep, unfortunately, just kind of the cost of playing these colorless lands. And then finally, we mulliganed again. Well, I guess there was a hand that I skipped, but it was bad. I think it was actually just a 1-lander. And then we mulligan to 4 to this hand, which is not the best, of course. I think any 4-card hand is going to be not the best. But at least we can keep a 2-lander plus Duress. I actually should have kept 1 Swamp in case we drew Castle Locthwain. But we have this one, which is at least something. We see a Temple Mystery. We drew a Sheoldred, which is good in the matchup. But of course, we still need lands to draw it. And then we see a hand that's actually not too good. We take a Scrying, because they were really leaning on that card to get Lotus Field, but they just have kind of a lot of do nothing cards. We don't really care about Languish. Impulse is good, but it's whatever. Brawl is like decent, but like also kind of whatever. They opt to not play Brawl and just Impulse. And they Impulse first, which I think may have been a mistake. But they Impulse into I think a stage. So I guess it was pretty decent enough for them. And we're just forced to taking the Languish. So they have Sanctum. And they have, unfortunately here, they have 2 creatures with the Grazer. So we can't Edict away the Brawl, which is really unfortunate because we drew land, which was nice, but still can't really do anything. So here I let them attack. They didn't draw Lotus Field. So here I just go Edict and don't feel bad about not leaving up field. And fortunately enough, somehow on turn 4, we have a turn 4 Sheoldred on a mulligan to 4. So I felt pretty good with that. So weird though, they had this card, I've never seen it before, Perilous Voyage, which it was pretty good against us. It was 1 mana with Brawl, although I think the other 1 mana bounce spell is just a bit better, more broadly speaking. But that was really good for them. So they played that, they staged our Swamp, which was a little interesting. I think it's good if they draw a Dark Petition, which we see maybe a bit relevant here in this game. They have a couple of cycles here. Attack. We draw Thoughtseize, but I'm not going to be playing that just because it's really mana inefficient. I think Sheoldred's just probably better. They staged the Swamp again. So we drew just a field effect, and then we Thoughtseize, and we see this hand. So we're going to be taking Dark Petition here. So like despite not drawing Lotus Field, their Thespian stages, copying our Swamps was extremely good for them. So we take the Dark Petition, and then with Brawl, unfortunately, if they do top deck land, they do have the 6 mana Behold the Beyond, which is pretty unfortunate. At first, like, so we see that we swing in here, and we see that they do draw the land to cast the Behold the Beyond. And I was like, I actually didn't think they'd be able to cast the Behold the Beyond, just because for some reason, I totally forgot about Peral making it cost 6 mana, and then, not having the mana to cast it right off the bat. But of course, they do draw it, draw that lands to be able to cast it here. And I was kicking myself so hard because for the longest time, like I had my draw step stop, and I was like, okay, do I field the stage now? Like we can field now, but it's not too necessary. Like they can't cast the Behold the Beyond, right? Because they could they don't have enough mana, but they actually did. But we actually can't field the Swamps as the stages because they're basic lands, and the field effects specify non-basics. So I was kicking myself for the longest time, but in the end we couldn't really do anything about it. So they just Behold the Beyonded, which is scary. They have 3 really good cards in hand. We drew an Edict, which is extremely good though in case they go for the Chandra route, which we do see they go Lotus Field, Hidden Strings plus Ultimatum, which is like the perfect 3 cards for them, I believe. Yeah, Ultimatum. And then what did they choose? They say sorry because they're like taking a long time. They chose Omniscience, Petition, and Chandra. Pretty sure I give them what do I give? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I give them Omniscience and Chandra. I guess we'll see. Yeah, so I give them Omniscience and Chandra, just because Chandra at this point, because we do have the Edict effect, and they don't have much mana. Like if they had more mana floating to go Balaged, then it would be a different story, because then they could go Balaged, copy. Actually, then we do have time to Edict away the Chandra. Sure, it would have been like mostly fine, but just Chandra naked with no mana is usually just like a kill spell for Sheoldred, which is good for them, but it's not good enough for them to win, so we still have to give it to them. And don't mind entirely giving them the Omniscience with just 1 card in hand. I think if this was a Leer, then we would have been dead, but it wasn't, so fortunate enough in that case. And they do plus, so they exile the top 5. And I was a yeah, and in fact we do Edict here, so just get this out of the battlefield immediately. I think this was the correct play to do this now, just so they can't get that trigger. And then they exile 5 uncastable cards. So I don't think they could have. Yeah, they in fact they didn't. They say they don't have any outs, so I don't think they could have drawn into anything there or exiled anything. And then they concede. So somehow we got there against Lotus Field with the mulligan to 4. I think we drew like pretty much perfect this game, despite being on the mulligan to 4, which is really nice. This was an extremely long game or match, so I think like usually Lotus Field is pretty easy for us because we do have the 8 discard plus Liliana post board, but still a bit iffy. The field effects do help out with the Thespian stage, but it's still scary sometimes, but we did get there in the end. Okay, match number 4. We have a pretty decent hand. Opponent mulligans to 6. We lead on castle, of course. See a farmland, so we know this is going to be control. We play out our shadow. And then we see a strict proctor, so we know this is the Lotus Field one, but we get that out of the really quick. We have a second strict proctor, but we are able to cling to dust into removal spell, which is nice. And then swing for 5. And then they leave up 4 mana, so we kind of know they have Emperor, so we just attacked. Don't pump, of course. They exile, then we play our backup 1. Then they have a Teferi, and they minus. So, like with this start, it's kind of hard to come back from this. Even harder when we don't draw any non-landers, which happens here. We castle into another another land. Don't draw any non-lands. They keep on doing their thing with their planeswalkers, and then pretty much at this point, like quite early on, we're just pretty much out of the game. They are able to do a time walk here with discontinuity, which is kind of like their game plan. I think like we end up losing this match, but I think this is a pretty good matchup for us overall. Like this game one, we just flooded out really, really badly. We can like do some field things with them, but you know, it's not the best. Yeah, I think broadly speaking, this is a fine matchup just because they don't have like too much interaction. We Thoughtseize, see an extra time walk into Emperor, so I just concede there and just go to game 2. Okay, so game 2 post board, we do bring in the Thoughtseizes and Pithing Needles, and take out some number of removal spells. I do like Thirst over Push, despite Push being good instant speed against Shark Typhoon and Wandering Emperor tokens. I think I'd rather have access to hitting Planeswalkers. I think I should have brought in like 2 Invoke Despair, but I opted not to. But you know, that could be a thing we want to be doing. So here we have like, this is what I've been talking about this league. We can keep these 7 card hands that have Duress, Cling to Dust, 1 land. Just because we can Cling to Dust around Duress, or you know, Thoughtseize or whatnot. And we see they have a pretty poor hand. They do have the combo of Lotus Field plus Discontinuity on turn 3. So they have 6 mana on turn 4. So we take the Discontinuity and leave them with the March, which is like not doing much anyways. We unfortunately don't draw its second land, so we do the trick. You know, we can Cling to Dust their Discontinuity. We don't draw into second land. We draw into second Duress, or third Duress, I guess, which is fine, but really wanted to find that land, so a bit unfortunate. But of course, this is the cost of keeping a hand like this. We see a Sunfall from them. We take the March though, because Sunfall isn't too much of a worry right now. They play out their Lotus Field. We finally draw land, which is nice. We take the Sunfall just because we do have Edict for this Elspeth, which we saw, which is a pretty cool one that they're able to play. We play out Trespasser because we did draw 3rd land, fortunately. Of course, it's like kind of like questionable. I have a Sphinx's Revelation, which I found kind of funny. It's like questionable keeping the one lander with Duress plus Cling to Dust, which I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. It's kind of just like keeping like a 2-lander, but I don't know. Here we just get like really kind of punished. We're able to have an Edict for this Dream Trawler, which is nice. Which otherwise Dream Trawler is like really good against us. But yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, let me know what you think about that mulligan decision. Perhaps it is correct, but I think having Duress, like Duress is just so important, right, in this matchup. And then Cling to Dust. So, I mean, it's close, but I'm not sure. So here, I think I should not have played out the second Trespasser, because we knew the last card was Sunfall in hand. Or sorry, Doomscar, because they foretold that like a lot of turns ago, which I forgot about. So yeah, not the best there, but at least we forced them to play it. And then we make them scry first, then we field after. So we can they went one top, one bottom, so we're able to shuffle away that card they put on top. And then they have a Farewell, and then we just kind of don't really draw into much. Or sorry, we draw Liliana, which is really good for us. We plus away, they had an Emperor in hand, so we're kind of actually feeling good at this point. But what we see, they copy the Castle Locthwain there, then just drew into Teferi, which is kind of like the nightmare. But we drew an Edict, which is pretty good, and then we have enough mana to castle. And like here, like I didn't mind too much of their castling, just because they're losing a good amount of life. And usually like they just want to be passing, and so they can't like play out their hands too quickly, and so the castle isn't the best, right? But here, unfortunately, they do have Emperor, which is like not incredible on this board state, but of course like extremely problematic for us. We really kind of needed to draw like Needle, discard spell, or Edict again. Sheoldred is really nice, and we can just like do the thing of just not attacking with it, with this Wandering Emperor. But they just had Teferi to tuck, so it's kind of hard to say. I think they just got like pretty lucky. I mean, we had some good plays, but like here, if we drew something else other than this field effect, I think we could have had game. Like if we drew Pithing Needle. But yeah, we're just kind of not really doing much from here on out. We could Edict away the Strict Proctor, but really not doing much there. Like I said, I do think this is a decent matchup just because they don't have any counter spells and they don't have that much interaction anyways. So if we're able to get Liliana down and keep it down, that's pretty much going to win the game, right? Otherwise, I think it's like I think it's a pretty fair matchup. Yeah, we lost this one. We went against them in the last league, so that's why I was kind of thinking like, okay, it's a pretty fine matchup. And I think my thinking that it's actually like a good matchup for us is that it's better than blue-white control, like stock blue-white control. But here maybe my thinking is a bit more incorrect, with them getting us pretty easily 2-0 here. But of course, with more testing, we'll find out more results, and I'll see you for the next one. Okay, match number 5. We're playing for the 3-2 for this one, so feeling pretty good. We have a hoping to play against combo or control with this hand for sure. We turn 1 Thoughtseize though, opponent mulligans to 5, so when I saw that, I was like, okay, like we probably have a pretty easy game 1 here with the way our hand is set up. We see though that we are up against blue-white spirits, which is a pretty tough matchup, but of course with this start we're feeling pretty good. Here I take the Shacklegeist, which I think could have been a mistake, because we do have the thirst for it later on, but I think it's still fine. Obviously we do have a pretty good start. It's pretty hard to mess this up, but I was thinking if they drew like a Rattle Chains or a Spectral Sailor, we could have gotten a bit punished for not taking the Shacklegeist early on, and you know, knowing that we do just have these other Thoughtseizes, we're feeling pretty good. We see a Supreme Phantom, so we take that, and then the Curious Obsession, leave them with really not much. And here is a pretty interesting line. We had really easy turn 3 Liliana, but I opted not to go for that just because they had the Edict, which could have been really good for them. I think we still could have gone for it and could have plussed, discarded Thirst, but I wanted to play a bit safe. I think I played probably a bit too safe here. I think I probably should have gone for it, but we did it. We could Edict here. They do sacrifice their Mutavault. So here with that play, I'm feeling a bit better about myself, but still probably just should have slammed Liliana there. And even here we have to Edict, and then we're kind of weak against another Spectral Sailor there. But fortunately they didn't have it. Or I think Rattle Chains because they had 2 mana. And then them not having anything here, I am feeling pretty good about my position. We're kind of able to play this game with Liliana. We're able to plus, hold up removal if we draw it. Obviously here we're gonna kill this Phantom. The field effects are pretty decent here, I do have to say. Just kind of thinning out our deck and then making their mana a bit worse. Just keep up plussing. They aren't really drawing much. We are drawing a lot of removal, which is decent. I keep push over Edict here because it's just a bit more flexible. But we're not drawing any threats, which is kind of what we want to be drawing to. You can say that Liliana is a threat, but we kind of need a way to finish the game. That's not Hive, because Hive is not the best. That's pretty slow way of winning the game. We really want to draw Sheoldred here, basically. But we do go for the Hive. They had an invasion, which didn't do anything. They draw a land. Just keep attacking with Hive. We had to discard a push there, but obviously still going to be plussing Liliana. Here, though, they had Sailor in response to Liliana, which is like their best draw because they could draw here. And they do attack down. So they do attack down the invasion. But we are able to ultimate here. And I end up going with this plan here. They have 2 cards in hand. And I think it's kind of tough to say, but I think this is correct. I really didn't want the Sailor to be on the battlefield. Could have put an island in the bottom pile as well to go those 4 cards against top 3 being 3 lands, which could have been a bit better if they were holding. If we were afraid of them holding more non-lands. But I think this is pretty decent. They obviously have a pretty easy choice of keeping the lands, which I think I'm pretty fine with. And we do attack, and just fully pump up the Shadow. Shadow is actually pretty decent in this matchup, just because it can be really, really big. So they have Rattle Chains, plus nothing else, which is really good for us. So they attack down Liliana, which is fine. But we just activate Hive, and then we have enough mana to go Hive, and then make Shadow a lethal 5/5 with 3 mana open. Fortunately enough for them, though, they did have the 2 blockers. And yeah, they just concede there. So yeah, Liliana Ultimate was really, really sweet there. Could have made some minor changes to the way I played that out, but I think it was pretty easy. Overall, just pretty straightforward game plan of plussing Liliana and kind of taking her as our pathway to victory. Okay, game 2 against Spirits. I kind of trimmed around the edges just a bit. I brought in the full 4 paths and then cut 2 Shadow, a Cling to Dust, and a Thoughtseize. And we have a pretty decent hand, actually a pretty nice hand with 2 removal spells plus Liliana. So pretty straightforward game plan of keeping the board as clear as possible. We drew Edict, which was nice. I would have preferred these thirsts to be pushes to play at instant speed, but at least the Edict allows us to do that. And I do just pass here. And I do Edict over. I guess yeah, Edict was our only play. And they have Wanderer plus 2 cards in hand, so I'm feeling pretty decent here. We don't draw land for turn, So we just go Thirst, but they have Spell Queller, but we are able to Edict. I should have, however, Edicted before, after the Spell Queller resolved, the trigger resolved, just so if they choose to sacrifice the Queller, we can at least get the Thirst back. I thought that it didn't matter too much just because they had a pretty easy sack of the Sailor here, but they could have sacked the Spell Queller, so technically should have done that a bit differently. But they have 1 card in hand, we have 5. We're feeling pretty good. If we draw land here, which we do, we're feeling even better because we can go Liliana. They counter it, which is fine, and we just Thirst the Wanderer. And then they have just 1 Queller, and we have triple Trespasser. Even like Invasion here, we're not really worried about it too much. And we even drew Sheoldred, which is an even better threat than Trespasser. So Wanderer for turn, that's fine. They flip the Invasion, which is kind of like whatever at this point. I kind of just like don't really care what they're doing with Sheoldred on the battlefield and our life total being this high. It doesn't really matter too much. We're just gonna like beat them down here, despite them getting, you know, some value here with the Light Shield Array, pumping up their creatures. And then I think here they're actually dead, right? Yeah, because we swing for 8, and then they're dead to the draw stop Sheoldred. So really nice to get the win here against blue-white spirits, that is, which I think is a pretty tough matchup. So nice to 2-0 against them. Obviously, game 1 was a bit like, had some variance there with our triple, was it triple? Yeah, triple Thoughtseize and Liliana draw into their mulligan to 5, which was pretty nice. But I felt like this game number 2 was a pretty decent one, pretty fair one both ways. And yeah, that was it, and I'll see you guys for the wrap-up. Okay, so got another nice little 3-2 for this one. This kind of confirmed my feelings surrounding this deck being pretty promising. I feel like, so our losses were against the blue-white deck, which we won against in our first league with this deck, so I don't feel too bad about that. And then we had a pretty close loss against that Gearhulk creativity deck, so that feels nice. I think like this could have been, like, I'm kind of waiting for like a nice like 4-1. Another 3-2 would of course be nice. Of course, would never mind a 5-0, but I'm not sure we'll get there. I think this deck is pretty promising though. I've been having a lot of success. Thank you, of course, to all of you guys who are, you know, commenting your suggestions and just supporting the content overall. Really appreciate it, of course. And yeah, see you guys for the next one.